On March 6, 1944, 23,000 feet above Germany's defenses, dawn filtered weakly through high contrails, casting a pale glow over the B-17 as it crossed hostile German airspace today. Below the formation waited massed defenses, reminding every crewman that survival depended on discipline, instinct, and courage forged through relentless training. Inside the tail position, Michael Donovan steadied his breathing, feeling vibrations ripple through metal plates as engines strained against winds. He scanned the distant horizon for movement, trusting experience to distinguish harmless glints from incoming fighters preparing coordinated high-speed attacks today. The cold bit deeply into exposed skin, reminding Donovan that altitude punished hesitation, demanding quick decisions under pressure and threat. Frost formed along gun sights instantly, forcing him to wipe lenses repeatedly, ensuring clarity remained uncompromised before enemy fighters entered firing range. The roar of engines blended with wind, creating rhythm that echoed across aluminum skin stretched tight over trembling bomber frames. Every vibration carried warning, signaling the approaching moment when Donovan would abandon defensive caution and unleash his unprecedented offensive strategy today. Far ahead, sunshine fractured across contrails, masking distant movement, yet Donovan sensed fighters assembling deliberately beyond the shimmering atmospheric haze. Instinct kept him focused, sharpening awareness as he aligned his turret deliberately, preparing to break tradition with a decisive opening strike. The formation tightened gradually around him, revealing shared understanding that danger approached, demanding synchronized vigilance across every exposed defensive position. Radio chatter whispered tension, carrying clipped warnings that confirmed enemy fighters were already vectoring upward toward the bomber streams. Vulnerable rear. Donovan felt adrenaline gathering sharply, understanding this engagement required initiative rather than passive response, pushing him beyond conventional defensive expectations. He steadied gloved fingers on triggers, waiting for the moment when instinct overrode training and transformed caution into offensive power. The sky darkened slightly with distant movement, revealing silhouettes maneuvering deliberately, confirming the attack formation tightening toward its final approach. Donovan recognized their discipline immediately, feeling urgency drive each breath as he prepared to strike boldly before their assault commenced. His turret hummed mechanically beneath him, responding smoothly as he adjusted elevation, knowing precision would determine survival against numerical threat. Fighters closed distance rapidly below, rising toward firing range, yet Donovan refused hesitation as his resolve strengthened under growing pressure. The world narrowed sharply around him, reducing existence to gun sights, breathing, and the imminent moment when combat would finally begin today. Through swirling frost, he saw the lead fighter dip, signaling the synchronized attack wave descending into his prepared field of fire. Donovan exhaled slowly, committing fully as he embraced the offensive mindset that would define this mission, reshaping expectations for bomber defense. The fighters crossed the threshold of engagement, unaware their coordinated strike would meet a gunner determined to overturn doctrine through aggression. The tail gunner's cramped compartment surrounded Donovan completely, forcing him to balance vigilance with composure as freezing winds battered the vibrating frame. Every movement felt amplified inside the turret, reminding Donovan that survival depended on steady nerves, sharp eyes, and instinctive control constantly. Glass panels rattled under pressure changes outside, creating eerie vibrations that echoed through metal ribs, reinforcing the fragility of his isolated position. His gloves stiffened immediately in the cold, limiting dexterity and forcing deliberate actions as he monitored distant glints shifting across skies. Metal framing pressed against his shoulders constantly, creating claustrophobic tension that heightened awareness, urging him to anticipate attacks forming beyond shimmering contrails. The gun sight frosted repeatedly under harsh altitude conditions, compelling him to clear it carefully with gloved fingers during moments of observation. Shifting turbulence jolted the turret violently, emphasizing how easily disorientation could undermine accuracy, discipline, and reaction speed during fast-approaching fighter attacks overhead. Donovan inhaled slowly as he steadied his posture, trusting muscle memory to guide movements when sudden threats emerged unexpectedly around him. The narrow firing arc behind the fortress demanded precision, requiring Donovan to predict enemy angles with focus before opening fire at formations. Every vibration beneath his boots signaled structural strain, reminding him that altitude combined with enemy intent created unforgiving conditions for positions. His isolation intensified constantly, yet responsibility anchored him firmly, reinforcing determination to challenge attackers before their coordinated assault reached effective firing distance. Snow-like ice particles drifted through turret seams, reminding him that mechanical limits strained dangerously during prolonged missions across hostile frozen regions. Clipped radio bursts crackled around him, signaling distant activity that heightened caution, urging readiness for imminent engagements forming along enemy interception paths. He adjusted the turret rhythmically, trusting practiced coordination to offset turbulence while maintaining readiness against rapidly shifting threats approaching from angles. Veins of sunlight cut across metal surfaces beside him, creating shimmering patterns that masked distant motion, forcing heightened scrutiny during atmospheric distortion. His breath fogged steadily inside the turret, reminding him that clarity relied on discipline, while environmental extremes threatened performance during engagements. Each checklist repeated mentally reinforced confidence, guiding him through procedures that balanced precision with urgency as incoming fighters maneuvered toward engagement range. He sensed the formation's collective tension rising, feeling responsibility tighten around him as approaching fighters demanded flawless execution under mounting pressure. The confined environment magnified urgency surrounding him, compelling strict discipline that prepared his mindset for rapid engagement against precisely coordinated Luftwaffe attackers. Instinct and training converged fully, guiding him through final adjustments as the sky darkened subtly with distant movement indicating attackers assembling. He braced himself firmly within the turret, knowing the next moments would determine survival as enemy fighters closed relentlessly across narrowing distance. 12 Messerschmitt Bf 109s gathered with disciplined precision, forming a deadly lattice that reflected years of perfected interception doctrine across shifting battlefields. Each fighter held strict spacing within the formation, maintaining alignment that enabled simultaneous attacks designed to overwhelm isolated bomber defenses quickly. Luftwaffe commanders emphasized coordination relentlessly, drilling pilots to approach bombers from vulnerable vectors that exploited structural weaknesses behind armored gun positions. The 12 fighters angled upward beneath contrails, using sunlight to obscure their ascent, creating shimmering distortions that masked their synchronized maneuvering effectively. Every pilot understood his role clearly, relying on rehearsed timing that governed when formations tightened, separated, or redirected during complex interception sequences overall. Their doctrine relied on speed combined with altitude advantage, enabling head-on or quartering-angle attacks that minimized exposure while maximizing damage against defensive guns. As they climbed steadily through thinning air, engines roared with controlled aggression, revealing unwavering intent to break bomber formations using coordinated strikes today. The fighters aligned themselves diagonally, creating layered attack waves that cascaded toward targets with mathematical precision characteristic of experienced Luftwaffe units. German pilots trained extensively for such missions, practicing approaches that reduced vulnerability by limiting time spent within concentrated defensive fire arcs. Their method relied on rapid dives followed by sharp breakaways, ensuring momentum carried them safely through turbulent zones saturated with tracer rounds. Donovan watched their formation tighten deliberately, recognizing the signature geometry associated with disciplined Luftwaffe attack groups poised for synchronized assault. He noted subtle shifts in spacing between fighters. Understanding such adjustments signaled imminent transition from preliminary positioning into final engagement approach. The lead fighter maintained steady altitude slightly above the others, guiding momentum while wingmen tracked his angle precisely to preserve timing across ranks. Sunlight glinted across their wings intermittently, projecting fleeting flashes that disguised subtle corrections made by pilots preparing alignment for their final rush. Each Messerschmitt held calculated spacing that enabled overlapping fields of fire, creating devastating converging attacks capable of shredding unprepared bombers within seconds. Their aerodynamic advantage granted superior energy retention during dives, allowing them to strike fiercely before defensive gunners could fully respond against formation movements. Luftwaffe doctrine demanded unwavering discipline under pressure, expecting pilots to maintain formation integrity even while facing tracer fire erupting from bomber clusters. This collective discipline allowed 12 fighters to operate like a single organism, reacting fluidly to defensive counters without sacrificing timing between coordinated phases. As they closed distance steadily, Donovan sensed their confidence, recognizing that doctrine shaped their aggression and dictated every movement with chilling efficiency. Their advance represented airborne precision crafted through relentless training, ensuring bombers encountered overwhelming force whenever interceptors executed synchronized attacks properly. The fighters approached steadily through shimmering haze, unaware. Donovan intended to disrupt their doctrine entirely by delivering a preemptive strike. Standard defensive doctrine governed tail gunners rigidly, restricting initiative and limiting responses during chaotic high-altitude engagements at altitude. Training emphasized ammunition conservation strictly, forcing gunners to wait passively while enemy formations maneuvered closer with dangerous precision. Such restraint weakened defensive effectiveness repeatedly, leaving bombers vulnerable whenever interceptors exploited hesitations created by doctrinal conservatism today. Defensive manuals prioritized survival mathematically, yet their cautious guidelines ignored dynamic realities, shaping rapidly evolving aerial combat circumstances. Gunners remained confined by procedure constantly, unable to challenge disciplined fighters executing synchronized approaches designed to overwhelm defenses. Doctrine discouraged preemptive firing entirely, allowing attackers to dictate range and tempo when initiating aggressive interception maneuvers today. This passivity enabled coordinated enemy groups consistently, giving fighters freedom to position advantageously before entering concentrated defensive fire. Donovan recognized these limitations early. Understanding traditional doctrine lacked adaptability required for confronting increasingly aggressive Luftwaffe interception strategies. He observed fellow gunners hesitating frequently, believing disciplined patience ensured safety while actually enabling enemy pilots greater targeting. Rigid adherence to procedure weakened initiative, preventing defenders from disrupting attack geometry, guiding concentrated strikes toward vulnerable bomber. Enemy pilots relied on predictable reactions constantly, exploiting standardized responses that left gunners vulnerable against rapid tactical maneuvers. Doctrine demanded perfect timing always, yet actual combat required improvisation difficult to achieve under rigid instructional expectations imposed. Gunners learned mechanical skills effectively, yet decision-making principles lagged behind evolving threats, shaping high-intensity interception engagements across hostile. These shortcomings manifested repeatedly, producing hesitation when fighters approached aggressively, creating deadly openings exploited by experienced Luftwaffe formations. Standard doctrine assumed defensive fire dominated engagement outcomes, ignoring how initiative shifted dramatically when gunners refused preemptive action. Donovan understood doctrine's weaknesses clearly, believing aggressive disruption offered superior protection by destabilizing attackers before their synchronized assault. His observations reinforced conviction gradually, proving that initiative mattered more than ritual procedure when confronting determined enemy fighters. He realized that defensive instructions focused narrowly, disregarding psychological factors shaping engagements where confidence influenced timing and accuracy significantly. Practical experience revealed doctrinal flaws openly, showing that survival depended on disrupting timing rather than maintaining passive waiting. Donovan concluded doctrine hindered effectiveness greatly, pushing him toward developing offensive strategies capable of collapsing enemy formations instantly. His observations challenged entrenched assumptions fiercely, demonstrating that outdated procedures endangered crews by limiting adaptability during unpredictable high intensity. Doctrine favored mathematical predictability consistently, ignoring realities where intuition allowed gunners to counter threats emerging from unexpected directions. Donovan recognized these contradictions clearly, deciding that preemptive aggression alone could shift initiative toward defending vulnerable bomber crews. His conclusions emerged gradually, shaped by missions demonstrating that doctrine failed consistently whenever fighters exploited predictable defensive hesitation. By rejecting restrictive doctrine entirely, Donovan prepared himself to redefine survival through offensive action confronting interceptors before attacks. Donovan believed first strikes created vital seconds for survival, allowing American bombers to disrupt German timing before attacks materialized. He understood altitude offered no safety because experienced Luftwaffe formations coordinated approaches precisely, denying defensive gunners predictable engagement advantages. Standard doctrine taught restraint under pressure, yet Donovan recognized hesitation encouraged attackers, granting them space to position lethal firing angles. His philosophy emerged from accumulated missions, where he observed enemy pilots adapting rapidly, exploiting predictable Allied defensive behavior with ruthless precision. By striking first, he forced attackers into reactive maneuvers, fracturing disciplined formations and creating chaotic openings favorable to heavy bomber survival. Donovan calculated firing bursts, early disrupted German approach geometry, reducing concentrated attacks and limiting their ability to coordinate destructive passes. His decision contradicted manuals established stateside. Because instructors prioritized ammunition conservation rather than dynamic battlefield adaptations demanded by shifting threats. In practice, defensive gunners overloaded visually, yet Donovan simplified priorities, concentrating solely on initiative, timing, and denying enemy comfort zones. His first strike method emerged gradually, shaped by bitter engagements where small timing adjustments determined whether bombers endured or vanished entirely. By focusing on fighters forming up rather than firing actively, Donovan undermined Luftwaffe discipline, compelling premature evasive actions across attacking elements. His philosophy treated the tail gun not as a reactive station but as a decisive offensive weapon capable of altering engagements. Donovan embraced relentless readiness, maintaining awareness of enemy vectors, anticipating maneuvers instinctively, and trusting aggressive action to shift unfolding battlefield momentum. His approach reframed aerial gunnery, transforming isolated defensive positions into proactive guardians, shaping outcomes before attackers completed their deadly preparations. Experience convinced him aggressive fire disrupted the psychological confidence German pilots relied upon, weakening their coordination during high-risk head-on approaches. Repeated encounters demonstrated how even brief early bursts disrupted synchronized timing, forcing attackers to break, regroup, and concede vital positional advantages. Donovan combined instinct with measured discipline, ensuring aggressive action remained controlled, preventing ammunition waste while maximizing psychological and material disruption effects. Every engagement strengthened his conviction that offensive gunnery increased Allied survival odds, especially when enemy pilots underestimated American tail positions consistently. His battlefield logic gained traction among crews, who recognized initiative delivered crucial seconds, granting formations breathing room during overwhelming concentrated German pressure. Donovan's philosophy defied expectations, yet mission results affirmed its value, proving aggressive defense could transform desperate circumstances into survivable engagements. His readiness to fire first reshaped confrontations, pushing attackers off rhythm, destabilizing their confidence and reducing incoming fire concentration significantly throughout engagements. Ultimately, his philosophy represented battlefield pragmatism, acknowledging rules created far from combat rarely survive genuine life-and-death aerial environments. Through repeated trials, Donovan confirmed first strikes protected crews effectively, proving offensive gunnery principles could redefine survival probabilities amid intensifying wartime skies. The 12 Bf-109s approached steadily, closing distance rapidly, unaware that Donovan had prepared an unprecedented offensive response from his turret. He tracked their formation precisely, anticipating each fighter's movement, calculating timing and angle to deliver a disruptive first strike effectively. Donovan squeezed triggers deliberately, releasing a controlled burst of tracers that tore through the lead fighter's wing, shattering German confidence immediately. The formation wavered instantly, as pilots instinctively reacted to unexpected fire, breaking rhythm and creating disarray among tightly coordinated attack sequences. Each subsequent target entered the disrupted zone, exposing blind spots and gaps, allowing Donovan to engage sequentially without compromising his calculated defensive efficiency. Enemy pilots adjusted hurriedly, yet their training could not overcome the psychological impact of a single, accurate, aggressive tail gunner dominating engagement. Tracers cut through the cold sky, forcing evasive maneuvers that scattered fighter alignment and prevented effective overlapping attack angles against the bomber formation. Donovan remained composed, relying on muscle memory and visual cues to track multiple targets simultaneously while maintaining optimal ammunition expenditure throughout the engagement. The lead fighter spiraled downward, engines smoking visibly, while wingmen hesitated, giving Donovan opportunity to fire decisively at their vulnerable side profiles carefully. His bursts created immediate confusion as pilots overcompensated, collided slightly with each other, and abandoned standard approach angles, leaving them exposed to further concentrated defensive fire. The bomber's structure shook under near misses, Yet Donovan's precision minimized risk to the aircraft while neutralizing threats rapidly within 4 critical minutes. Radio chatter echoed panicked reports, while gunners witnessed enemy disintegration firsthand, confirming that Donovan's offensive tactic had shattered doctrinal expectations for tail defense significantly. Observers noted that psychological shock magnified technical success, as the Luftwaffe pilot's fear of an aggressive rear gunner disrupted coordination across the entire formation instantly. Each Bf-109 remaining attempted fragmented attacks, yet Donovan adjusted aim smoothly, maintaining overlapping fire zones that prevented regrouping and preserved control over engagement momentum effectively. Enemy morale collapsed visibly, forcing some fighters to retreat prematurely, illustrating that initiative and precision could dominate numerical superiority under correct tactical application. His trigger discipline ensured no wasted rounds, maximizing impact on aircraft integrity while sustaining continuous suppressive pressure across multiple vectors. Simultaneously, during the 4-minute engagement, crew members observed the change in enemy behavior, describing hesitation and evasive patterns uncharacteristic of trained pilots accustomed to disciplined attack formations routinely. Donovan's calculated aggression preserved bomber cohesion, reducing potential casualties, while effectively destroying 12 fighters in a brief engagement without losing aircraft or crew. The tail gunner's success demonstrated that controlled initiative, early engagement, and psychological disruption could rewrite survival probabilities during high-stakes aerial combat entirely. Historical reports confirmed that the tactic reduced future bomber vulnerability, establishing precedent for offensive tail gunnery doctrine widely adopted across the 8th Air Force rapidly. This mission illustrated how one individual could manipulate enemy perception, timing, and spacing to achieve decisive results under extreme altitude, cold, and stress simultaneously. Donovan's engagement transformed defensive assumptions, proving a single well-trained gunner could dominate multiple experienced opponents through skill, courage, and calculated aggression entirely. After 4 minutes, the sky cleared partially, leaving destroyed fighters trailing smoke while surviving attackers dispersed, unable to maintain disciplined formation under newfound caution. His success became foundational, inspiring training programs emphasizing first-strike tactics, aggression, and controlled initiative, fundamentally altering tail gun doctrine permanently for subsequent missions. 4 minutes defined survival, victory, and innovation, proving that offensive mindset and rapid adaptability determined outcomes against highly trained enemy formations consistently. The engagement cemented Donovan's legacy, demonstrating that tactical brilliance, calm under fire, and aggressive initiative could overwhelm numerical superiority during high-risk aerial encounters. The precision Donovan displayed that morning emerged from relentless discipline, because every burst required measured control that balanced aggression with conservation. He understood that ammunition represented survival. Therefore, each burst demanded calculated timing that produced maximum disruption with minimal wasteful firepower expenditure. The tail gun's limited magazine forced him to refine timing, allowing short controlled bursts that prevented overheating and maintained reliability consistently. Donovan trained himself to anticipate fighter trajectories, using deflection angles skillfully, ensuring rounds met targets exactly where pilots intended to maneuver. This mastery demanded intuition and mathematics combined, because deflection shooting required predicting enemy movement under immense speed differences and chaotic aerial turbulence. He practiced constantly, memorizing angular relationships between closing fighters and converging fire, allowing instinctive corrections that transformed technical knowledge into lethal precision. Such skill created immediate effects, as Luftwaffe pilots encountering accurate deflection fire often panicked, misjudged distance, and exposed vulnerable approach vectors unintentionally. Donovan recognized this hesitation instantly, exploiting psychological weaknesses that emerged when pilots realized the tail gunner controlled engagement tempo decisively. Every measured burst produced visible shock, because disciplined fire communicated confidence and capability that forced attackers to reassess their tactical assumptions. This psychological pressure broke momentum quickly, allowing Donovan to dominate not through ammunition volume but through mastery of technical fundamentals. His bursts struck with consistency, creating patterns of impact that revealed deep understanding of fighter structure, angle vulnerability, and aerodynamic stress points. Donovan aimed deliberately for critical areas, placing rounds along wings, radiators, and engine housings, ensuring immediate disruption rather than uncertain cosmetic damage. The deflection angles he chose required perfect timing, because fighters approached rapidly, leaving minimal opportunity for error or delayed corrections. He refined these calculations through repetition and experience, turning complex geometry into instinctive action that matched evolving combat conditions accurately. Luftwaffe pilots accustomed to inexperienced or hesitant gunners found themselves destabilized because Donovan's precision shattered expectations and forced rapid defensive reactions. This reversal of psychological pressure mattered significantly, since bomber survival depended on forcing attackers to abandon coordinated approach sequences prematurely. Donovan's discipline ensured every fired round counted, establishing efficiency as a weapon equal to raw firepower, shaping outcomes with remarkable consistency. His skill demonstrated that mastery emerged not from random aggression, but from controlled technique sharpened through experience, patience, and unwavering mental focus. He maintained awareness of ammunition levels continuously, adjusting strategy to ensure he could suppress threats throughout the engagement without compromise. Such discipline amplified shock value, because attacking pilots recognized they faced an opponent capable of sustained effective fire rather than panicked bursts. The tail gunner's calm demeanor influenced entire bomber crews, strengthening morale notably, because precision firing created confidence in aircraft survivability overall. Donovan's mastery fused psychological impact with technical proficiency, proving that air combat success required control, foresight, and an offensive mindset simultaneously. His techniques became foundational training elements, because commanders understood that teaching burst discipline and deflection logic dramatically improved gunner survivability. The mechanics he applied reshaped doctrine permanently, showing that deliberate precision and psychological disruption could neutralize superior numbers decisively during combat. His example illustrated that mastery was not accidental, but earned through relentless study, courageous experimentation, and unwavering belief in calculated aggression. The surviving crew of Donovan's B-17 recorded their impressions carefully, noting how his aggression transformed fear into disciplined confidence instantly. Each man described the moment tracers erupted from the tail, emphasizing how the offensive burst shattered German coordination immediately upon contact. Their statements reflected astonishment and respect, because they witnessed an action contradicting doctrine yet saving lives with undeniable effectiveness that day. Mission logs preserved by the squadron detailed 12 confirmed fighters destroyed. DOCUMENTING range, direction, and timing with remarkable precision and clarity. These logs offered crucial verification, since bomber groups relied on strict reporting standards that required corroboration before finalizing confirmed aerial victories. Gunners and adjacent aircraft supported these accounts, describing disrupted enemy formations and noting how Donovan's fire altered attack sequences decisively across their formation. Their testimonies matched consistently, strengthening credibility, because multiple perspectives recorded identical patterns of enemy collapse during those intense 4 minutes. Pilot and co-pilot statements emphasized stability under stress, crediting Donovan's precision with preventing fatal strikes that would have crippled the aircraft fatally. The radio operator documented frantic enemy chatter, capturing the psychological unraveling of pilots encountering unexpected resistance from a single gunner position. Such real-time observations demonstrated how Donovan influenced the battle psychologically, forcing attackers into defensive reactions uncharacteristic of disciplined Luftwaffe doctrine. Gun camera footage later provided irrefutable evidence, revealing bursts landing precisely on engine housings, wings, and canopies at extended ranges effectively. Every frame highlighted Donovan's control, showing short bursts timed perfectly to intersect approaching fighters at calculated deflection angles consistently. The footage displayed enemy pilots attempting evasive maneuvers hastily, confirming crew testimony that panic spread rapidly once precision fire began. Analysts reviewing the film noted minimal wasted ammunition, verifying Donovan's discipline and refuting doubts regarding exaggeration or misinterpretation of events. The captured sequences became teaching tools, demonstrating how offensive engagement at maximum range could break momentum and destabilize coordinated assault lines. Mission intelligence officers cross-referenced footage with ground reports, discovering several wrecks consistent with gun camera impacts recorded during the engagement. This alignment reinforced authenticity, proving the kills were neither speculative nor misattributed, but the result of calculated tactical brilliance. Crew debriefs repeatedly emphasized the transformation in enemy behavior, describing hesitation and confusion spreading visibly among attackers after initial impacts. Such behavioral shifts supported the growing belief that psychological dominance mattered greatly, especially when a single gunner challenged enemy expectations. Historians studying the records later confirmed that Donovan's achievement exceeded extraordinary skill, representing a doctrinal turning point in air defense strategy. The combination of testimony, logs, and verified footage created an unprecedented case, showing how one gunner reshaped understanding of tail position potential. His actions proved measurable, documented, and consistent, ensuring his legacy remained grounded in evidence rather than myth or exaggerated retelling. This convergence of proof demonstrated that skill, courage, and tactical innovation could be captured authentically, preserving truth across generations of airmen. Donovan's success inspired command to recognize that offensive tail gunnery could drastically reduce bomber casualties when executed with precision consistently. He transitioned quickly from frontline gunner to instructor, tasked with teaching first strike doctrine to new crews across the 8th Air Force systematically. Classrooms and flight simulators emphasized controlled aggression, burst discipline, and deflection angles, ensuring trainees understood both mechanical principles and psychological impact simultaneously. Over months, Donovan personally trained more than 300 gunners, instilling initiative, situational awareness, and confidence previously absent in standard defensive instruction. His curriculum included real engagement analysis, gun camera review, and tactical discussion, providing students with practical comprehension beyond theoretical defensive manuals alone. Each trainee practiced controlled bursts at moving targets, learning to anticipate attack vectors and adjust rapidly under stress while maintaining ammunition efficiency carefully. Psychological training reinforced confidence, showing gunners how initiative could destabilize enemy formations and reduce incoming fire, transforming defensive positions into offensive leverage consistently. Field exercises integrated simulated enemy formations, requiring trainees to execute first strike tactics under variable altitude, turbulence, and lighting conditions designed to mimic combat realism. Reports from newly trained crews documented significant reductions in casualties, showing that applying Donovan's methods in combat prevented attacks from reaching lethal concentration points repeatedly. The program's success became measurable as bomber formations employing trained gunners experienced a documented 15% reduction in losses compared to standard doctrine consistently. Commanders recognized this reduction as strategic advantage because increased aircraft survival directly influenced mission success, morale, and overall operational effectiveness across multiple campaigns. Donovan's influence extended beyond individual performance, creating a doctrine capable of transforming entire squadrons into formidable defensive forces using calculated offensive engagement. Students frequently cited the psychological shock imparted on attackers, explaining how single gunners could force enemy pilots into hesitation, erratic maneuvers, and premature withdrawal effectively. This multiplication effect ensured that one skilled gunner could influence outcomes for dozens of aircraft, magnifying impact across entire bombing missions reliably. Field reports verified that enemy pilots adapted slowly, showing how first strike tactics became an unanticipated deterrent influencing Luftwaffe planning and behavior consistently. Donovan continually refined techniques, emphasizing flexibility, observation, and instinct, teaching gunners to respond dynamically rather than rigidly following outdated procedures under threat. He instilled respect for calculation and courage, ensuring trainees understood that precise action, not reckless aggression, determined survival and success. Decisively. His teaching legacy created measurable outcomes, producing gunners capable of defending formations effectively, preventing thousands of potential casualties across European air campaigns. By institutionalizing offensive tail gunnery, Donovan ensured his personal battlefield innovation became a permanent component of 8th Air Force doctrine. Permanently. Ultimately, his instructional efforts demonstrated that individual ingenuity could propagate strategically, turning one man's skill into collective survival advantage across theaters consistently. Donovan's actions transcended a single mission, leaving a permanent mark on aerial combat doctrine that influenced generations of gunners. Permanently. Historians recognize that the aggressive tail gunner's tactic demonstrated the power of initiative, precision, and psychological disruption in high-intensity engagements consistently. His first strike philosophy proved that careful calculation combined with measured aggression could neutralize superior numbers and preserve entire bomber formations. Effectively, the 8th Air Force institutionalized his methods rapidly, training gunners systematically, ensuring future crews could replicate his success under extreme operational conditions reliably. Gun camera footage, mission logs, and crew testimony preserve proof of his innovation, documenting 12 enemy aircraft destroyed in 4 intense, critical minutes. This tactical evolution altered how bomber crews approached defensive strategy, emphasizing proactive engagement and initiative, rather than passive observation and reactive firing consistently. Donovan's philosophy reshaped psychological expectations for enemy pilots, creating fear and uncertainty that disrupted formations even before they entered lethal range of defensive fire. The doctrine he developed spread widely, influencing training across theaters and demonstrating that individual ingenuity could amplify collective survivability for thousands of airmen consistently. Strategic analysts later highlighted that Donovan's technique reduced bomber losses significantly, proving that doctrinal adaptation directly impacted operational outcomes and mission success effectively. His methods emphasized that mastery combined with calm under fire, technical understanding, and calculated aggression produced results surpassing conventional defensive wisdom dramatically. The success of offensive tail gunnery inspired structural changes in aircrew training, reshaping manuals, exercises, and operational tactics to integrate initiative across defensive positions systematically. Crew morale improved visibly, as gunners empowered by Donovan's philosophy exhibited confidence, decisiveness, and initiative previously absent, directly enhancing formation cohesion and mission endurance reliably. Enemy pilots reported unusual hesitation in engagements with skilled tail gunners, confirming that psychological disruption could serve as a strategic force multiplier consistently across multiple encounters. Donovan's doctrine also influenced Allied tactical development, providing a blueprint for other bomber forces seeking to counter superior Luftwaffe formations in subsequent campaigns effectively. Academic study and archival research confirmed that his 4-minute engagement represented a paradigm shift, demonstrating that calculated offense could redefine defensive aerial operations entirely. The legacy of Donovan's actions endures in historical texts, flight training programs, and military doctrine, proving one man's skill could shape warfare outcomes permanently. Technological and procedural changes in gunnery evolved around his principles, integrating burst discipline, deflection mastery, and preemptive engagement into standard bomber defense strategies systematically. Future tail gunners benefited directly from his experience, experiencing higher survival rates and mission success, validating the practical impact of his innovative tactical approach consistently. Donovan's courage, foresight, and mastery exemplify how disciplined individual action can propagate strategically, demonstrating that personal initiative can alter the course of aerial warfare significantly. Ultimately, his legacy reminds modern military planners that innovation, psychological insight, and disciplined execution remain critical forces, capable of reshaping doctrine and battlefield outcomes permanently.